We are Pro Cannabis Media.
Welcome back to Cannabis Coast to Coast News. This is the B Block, and I'm Alaina Pinto. Remember to download our new app called PCMTV in the App Store or Google Play, and you can scan this QR code to take you right there. Then you can get on-demand news, content, and access to dozens of videos documenting the fight to end cannabis prohibition over the past 3 years. Taking a look at California cannabis news now. Governor Gavin Newsom's emergency ban on intoxicating hemp products has shut down a major part of that industry. Now, attempts by the U.S. Hemp Roundtable and Cheech and Chong Enterprises to use legal means to get a restraining order and a lawsuit have been turned down. This week, Los Angeles County Superior Court Judge Stephen Gorvich denied the restraining order, calling it a drastic remedy. The California Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control started a statewide crackdown on unlicensed THC-infused products. They inspected 383 establishments and seized more than 700 products across 14 brands, including Cheech and Chong products. All told, only 12 of the 383 businesses failed inspection, a 97% compliance rate. The court also clarified that cannabis products containing zero THC can continue to be sold. There's plenty of other big news from the Golden State. The California Department of Cannabis Control, or DCC, certified an environmental impact report in Mendocino County. This week, the action removes at least one barrier for nearly 500 provisional cultivation license holders, allowing them to move toward annual licensure and preventing their mass exodus before January 2025 deadline. Speaking of licenses, the DCC revoked Kush, K-U-S-H, collectives effective October 15th, claiming the company is involved in activity that poses harm to public health, safety, or welfare. They also issued an embargo affecting 194 of Kush's vape and vape cartridge products across 12 brands, claiming they are adulterated, misbranded, unlabeled, or contaminated. This is the 36th license revocation issued by the agency this year. And finally, here's an update on Operation Sticky Fingers, a sting that resulted in 24 arrests a few months ago for 15 dispensary burglaries involving $1 million worth of cannabis products in San Francisco's East Bay. 4 of the defendants have pleaded no contest to felony charges and are facing 90 days in jail and 3 years probation. The remaining co-defendants have hearings later this month or in December and April of next year. Now, let's check in with Matthew Friedlander in Washington State. Here he is.
Hi, I'm Matthew Friedlander, coming to you from the owner's office here at Skagit Organics with the Washington State Cannabis Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast. Today's report, I will touch on a few political events that I've attended recently, as well as a conversation that the Cannabis Alliance hosted yesterday about bridging the divide between cannabis and hemp regulation. So I was able to attend a fundraiser for Bob Ferguson. He is our current Attorney General, but he is running for the governor's office. He has been very supportive of the cannabis industry here in Washington in his current role, and we expect him to do the same if he wins the governorship. So we wish him well in his election bid for that office. The Cannabis Alliance hosted a fundraiser for Representative Shelley Kloba earlier this week. She is a state rep that has been also very supportive of the cannabis industry. She was instrumental, actually, in getting the legislation passed that removed the excise tax from DOH, or Department of Health Compliant Medical Grade Products, when purchased by a registered medical cannabis patient. So we applaud her for her work on that legislation, and we expect her to continue to help move this industry forward in the future. As I mentioned yesterday, the Cannabis Alliance held a virtual town hall discussing bridging the gap between hemp and cannabis regulation. These two industries are regulated very differently, and depending on how hemp regulation proceeds at the federal level, which is moving much faster than cannabis regulation, This could impact. This will impact state markets in very different ways, and so we're trying to get ahead of this. One thing that happened here in Washington, the legislation passed a bill that restricted any cannabinoid product to 0% THC. So even a hemp-based CBD product can no longer contain any amount of THC in it here in the state. What this, in effect, has done is reduce the number of hemp licensees in Washington from about 250 last year to 40 this year. Pretty much has destroyed the hemp industry here in the state. Nobody's willing to, take the kind of risk that they might be facing now with this new legislation. So that's what I have for you this week. My name is Matthew with the Washington State Cannabis Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast.
It wasn't too long ago that Leafly was riding high as one of the most popular online websites and editorial groups in the industry. But now Leafly Holdings, Inc. is facing potential delisting from NASDAQ. The company received a delisting notice on October 4th for failing to meet the exchange's net income requirements. This could seriously impact Leafly's ability to raise capital in an already cash-strapped industry. Leafly CEO Yoko Miyashita stated, "We are continuing to work with them and provide them updates on our progress to regain compliance with the applicable listing standards." The company's struggles reflect broader challenges in the cannabis sector, with several other firms facing similar exchange troubles. As the industry grapples with financial pressures, this situation highlights the ongoing hurdles for cannabis businesses in maintaining mainstream financial listings. Here's our man, who is high on Wall Street, Doug Miller.
I'm Doug Miller from High on Wall Street with this week's cannabis stock report for Cannabis Coast to Coast. Leafly Holdings, Inc. quietly reported that it may be delisted from the NASDAQ exchange. They received a delisting notice from NASDAQ staff on October 4th. According to an October 10th 8K filing with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, Leafly requested a hearing which could result in a 180-day extension. Its stock will continue to trade on NASDAQ during the appeal. Let's see how the stock chart looks. It's trading around $2.01, and it's setting up as almost all the cannabis stocks are. Something positive is about to happen in the cannabis industry, so I'll be watching for this, because when the stock chart's set up like this, something's going to happen. And that's this week's Cannabis Stock Report. Reporting for Cannabis Coast to Coast, I'm Doug Miller.
This is Debi Facey with the Cannabis Coast to Coast News Report. So we have in Canada this week, officially we turned 6, which is great. Justin Trudeau obviously had a beautiful shout out on what we call X. But no, it's great because the fact that we have made it this far, it has been a hurdle. It still is a hurdle, but we are at least aged, which is great. And I'm happy about that. Next, what we have is the report coming in stating that we are on the rise, or I want to say the uphill of profits when it comes to Canada and our overall Canada and our cannabis sales. We've seen an uprise, and it's something that is great for most of the LPs and producers. The retailers are obviously going to be finding a little bit more of a depletion due to the fact of the amount of stores that are just popping up. But hopefully they're able to gather some sort of mechanism, way, scheme to be able to subdue that for themselves. And last but not least, we have the VIP Experience, which is a 2-day conference out in Mississauga run by VIP Media. And it's called the Elevate Conference. And basically, it is a great way for LPs, craft producers, and bud tenders to come together to find out not only the up-and-coming products that are going to be coming to the market, but the education that they might not know, some of the information that is going to be implied, and also a great way to network with each other. That's going to be happening November 12th to the 14th, and I'm going to be happily reporting from there. So once again, this is Debi Facey with the Cannabis Coast to Coast News Report. Peace.
New Hampshire is still the only state in New England that does not have adult use sales, but now their medical program is expanding. 3 new laws are opening up more access to medical marijuana in the Granite State. The big change? Doctors can now certify patients for cannabis use for any debilitating condition. This could lead to a moderate increase in program participants, which currently serves about 15,000 people. But there are still hurdles. As Matt Simon from Granite Leaf Cannabis points out, quote, many Granite staters use cannabis for medical reasons, but may not realize they can qualify for the program. The state's hoping these changes will help more patients get registered and access safe, legal cannabis. It's a step forward for medical marijuana in New Hampshire, but the impact remains to be seen, and if their legislature will be taking up the adult use question again. In Arizona, there are rulings on 2 interesting cannabis court cases. Here's Karen Black with those stories and more.
I'm Karen Black from Greenfinger Consulting with the Arizona Cannabis Report for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. 2 court cases are creating controversy. The first gave the green light to medical cannabis dispensaries to set up shop near preschools. There's a split opinion with a strong dissent, with the majority upholding the difference between preschools and K-12 schools under Arizona law. This could open more prime locations for dispensaries across the state, but don't expect to see pot shops next to daycares just yet because local zoning laws still apply. Some say it's a win for Arizona's declining medical market, but the ruling is already sparking some heated debate about community planning and child safety. Impaired or not impaired? That was the question in the second case. The court ruled cannabis users cannot be convicted of DUIs solely for testing positive for THC. Instead, prosecutors must prove actual impairment at the time of driving. The change aligns Arizona's laws with scientific understanding of cannabis impairment and could impact how law enforcement handles traffic stops and how cases are prosecuted in the state going forward. Phoenix's Tilt Holdings executive shuffle continues. Chris Kelly just stepped down as chief revenue officer after less than 2 years on the job. The company framed Mr. Kelly's departure as part of its ongoing transformation and refocusing efforts, but all the C-suite changes leave us wondering if they'll ever find some stability at the top of their ranks. As we all know, the plan has gotten quite political this year, so Curaleaf Arizona decided to have a little fun with it. The company launched its Toke the Vote initiative and introduced 3 election-themed strains named after presidential candidates, all with similar THC levels and flavor profiles. Reportedly, sales of the Trump and Harris strains are neck and neck. That's all for the Arizona Report. I'm Karen Black from Greenfinger Consulting reporting for Cannabis Coast to Coast News.
The stereotype of the cannabis stoner is taking a beating lately as the public learns how to use the plant medicine for its different benefits and effects. Now, the link between cannabis legalization and physical activity is gaining attention. A recent study by associates of Brigham Young University suggests that cannabis legalization may actually boost physical activity levels. Researchers found that legalization corresponded to greater physical activity, especially among older adults. Interestingly, cannabis users didn't show significantly lower activity levels compared to non-users. This challenges the stereotype of the lazy stoner and hints at potential health benefits of cannabis legalization beyond its direct medical applications. As more states consider legalization, these findings could influence public health discussions and policy decisions going forward. Now let's check in with Joe Parsons in Virginia.
I'm Joe Parsons with the Virginia Cannabis Connection, and this is the Virginia Cannabis Report on Cannabis Coast to Coast News. Did you know every day 22 American veterans sadly take their own lives? That's a tragic end to the dedicated men and women that have served our country. Almost every case has been linked to severe post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. PTSD not only affects our former military, but police, rescue, and many others who risk everything to protect us during our most difficult times. For years, studies have been made to prove that cannabis can actually bring relief to PTSD patients. Finally, after much work, even the government is listening. More and more veterans groups are coming out in defense of cannabis reform and legalization. Virginia, of course, is no different. One of those groups is called Veterans for Veterans. They have a vision to support veterans and bring awareness to veteran suicide. They have an upcoming event planned for November. This event is called the First Annual Virginia Veterans Canna Competition. It'll be held November 8th through the 10th. It will feature multiple growers, vendors, and plenty of live music from 5 bands. The event's proceeds will be going to help educate and support cannabis as an alternative medicine and to help PTSD and promote many of the healing benefits of our beloved plant medicine. Now, this is a cannabis-friendly event, but is BYOC to keep it legal. You can purchase tickets from the web address below. I know that after this long election, it'll be nice to support our veterans and help curb one of the deadliest causes of death to the proud men and women that have served our country. I applaud them for what they're doing. Lastly, founder and executive producer of Cannabis Coast to Coast News, Jimmy Young, joined me on the amazing cannabis podcast, Higher Education's Coffee Talk, sponsored by 97.5 3WV in Charlottesville. As always, it was a blast. You can catch the full podcast on www.3wv.com. Full address is on the screen. Thank you, Jimmy, for helping me to make it rock. Well, that's going to do it for this week from the Virginia Cannabis Connection and reporting for Cannabis Coast to Coast News. I'm Joe Parsons. Until next time, stay lifted.
That'll do it for the B Block for this week's Cannabis Coast to Coast News, but we have some more stories for you from other states, and we will tell you about Snoop Dogg's appearance at the Weatherboard with the Today Show's Al Roker. Cannabis Coast to Coast News continues after this.
I think I messed up. Did you know there's a place that covers all the cannabis news you need? Welcome to Pro Cannabis Media, your go-to for all things cannabis. PCM is the CNBC of weed, bringing you the latest news and talk shows with a twist. We've got 16 state correspondents and multimedia journalists from around the US and Canada. It all started back in 2018 when founder Jimmy Young kicked off the In the Weeds podcast. His mission? Documenting the fight to end cannabis prohibition. Fast forward to today, and we've got Cannabis Coast to Coast with Alaina Pinto delivering the nation's only TV-style cannabis news show.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Cannabis Coast to Coast News, Pro Cannabis Media's weekly roundup of the news from the industry. I'm Alaina Pinto.
As of August 2024, PCM has racked up over 1.2 million views and 14.5 million impressions on our YouTube channel. With 15,000 subscribers and growing, our reach is spreading like wildfire. Cannabis Coast to Coast News, hosted by Alaina Pinto, features insights, interviews, and fresh perspectives from our network of 16 correspondents. It's your weekly dose of professional cannabis news straight from the experts. So, where can you catch all this awesome content? PCM's website, YouTube, Rumble, Discord, Roku, Twitch, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and even our very own PCM TV app. We've got over 1,000 videos in our archive, so there's always something new to watch.